There, everyone, and welcome back. This week on the Flying Runner, Lucia and I, flying duo, will take the reins again while Team Ellis are gallivanting around the world. And what we'll be doing tonight is looking at what their next adventure is, which is the Niagara Falls Marathon and more. It's shaping once again to be an amazing episode. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
The thrilling world of the Flying Runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome to episode 70 of The Flying Runner. Now, firstly, I've got to do a bit of a heads up because our numbers are going to be out of whack for a couple of weeks. So last week's episode was episode 68. This week's episode is episode 70. Episode 69 won't be until November 8th. So for those that are really detailed in there, I'm probably going to do your heads in. But yeah, so this week's episode 70, then we'll do 71, and then we'll do 69. So I hope all that makes sense. Does that make sense, Lucia?
It does. So, well, we're going to blame Tara and Tim because if they didn't go away, we'd be fine. So I reckon we just blame Tara and Tim. But ultimately, just listen to each podcast because they're going to be as funny and as interesting as the other. It's just for the people, if you're particular about number orders, just bear with us until everyone's back from their holidays.
Yep, just don't read the numbers, just read the titles. How's that? So all right. And once again, it's great to see you, Lucia, the flying duo we'll call ourselves. So and once again, it's just awesome that you're here. But before we kick off, I need to mention that last week's episode, we had some really positive comments from our episode last week. We had a really good thank you from Victoria Miles on Spotify, which is awesome. And there was a lot of love coming for Lucia's tip. So
excellent.
Lisa Scully contacted to say she took a lot away from it after having a tough run in Chicago. So thanks to everyone who watched, listened, and shared the show. We really do appreciate it. And as you know, if you make a comment or post a little thing on any of our channels, we're likely to talk about it. So yeah, so a little bit of love. So that's really, really pleasing to see. Now, last week, before we closed up, I mentioned that we were missing that live cross from Team Ellis, talking through their race at Chicago. And true to form, it came through the morning after I'd edited and scheduled everything. So while it's still fresh, I'm just going to edit it in now, Lucia. So we will, so the listeners can sit here, watch and listen to Team Ellis talk about how they got through the Chicago Marathon.
Hey everyone, it's Tim and Tara. We finished the Chicago Marathon. Yay! How are you feeling, Tara? How was yesterday?
Yeah, really, really good. Had the best time. Fantastic marathon. We had the best weather that you could ever ask for a marathon. I think it got to around about maybe 18, 19 degrees. The wind was not even really any problem at all, which is very good for the windy city. Woke up this morning in Chicago and it was 4 degrees and cold, wet and windy. So yesterday was perfect for what we wanted. Our race plan went exactly how it should have as well. So happy with that. We started in Corral K, so we call that the OK Corral. I think we put down a time between 4 hours 30 to 4:45, just so that we were up a little bit further in our time zones. And we had a party in the corrals with our friends, It was fantastic. So there were quite a few of us that we know in that K corral. It was really, really good actually. We enjoyed the whole entire run from the start to the finish. The crowd support the whole entire way was amazing. We just couldn't have asked for better crowd support. Water stations were amazing. There was bananas on course, which everyone knows I'm a huge fan of. We got sponges, wet sponges, like to cool us down on the back of the neck, especially towards the end of the marathon from about K21 onwards, was it, Tim? Yep. Or mile 13.1, as the Americans like to say. Crowd support, though, I cannot say enough about. It was amazing. What about you, Tim? How did you go?
Yeah, loved it. I think out of the 5 majors we've done so far, this is up there with one of the best ones we've done. Absolutely up there with London, which we rate as the best one so far that we've done. But no, we had a lot of fun. The setup and the organisation was awesome. The crowds were enormous the whole way through the course, constantly cheering. Could hardly hear our music playing in our ears for most of the way. Could hardly talk at times. So pretty awesome. Great organisation. Lots of water stations everywhere as well. So it was fantastic to see that along the way. And I just see that Aisha, one of our former guests on the show, is currently watching us, and as we're doing this live.
She was actually doing Chicago with us yesterday.
Yeah.
She was running a lot faster than us, and she attained her 6 stars. So congratulations,
Aisha. Well done.
So that's fantastic.
Yep.
We did have a little bit of a celebration party last night, and if anyone who's looking, you can probably see the bags under Tim and I eyes. We did go to bed a bit earlier than usual for us, but we did have a bit of a celebration party.
So we got up really early. That's the reason why we couldn't stay up too late. Got up really early, hit the airport really early, and now we're down in Nashville to party on down in Nashville for a couple of days, and just have a bit of a break before we get on to the next part of our adventure. But as far as the race went yesterday, really well organised, really loved how the race was organised.
Yep.
I couldn't fault it in any particular way. It was just perfect weather, perfect crowds, perfect setup for everyone out there. 50,000 runners, a world record in the women's race as well. 2:09 is now the new world record for women, which is an awesome feat to say that we were there when she got the record. Ruth Chepingedich. Really awesome. We pulled up pretty well today as well, didn't we, Tara? Legs are fantastic. No problems. Feet are fantastic.
Yep.
Everything's really good. We're ready to go for our next adventure, which is just under 2 weeks away in
Niagara Falls.
Falls.
I'm sitting there trying to think, what is our next race? Niagara Falls will be our next race, and we'll give a proper update again on that one. But for Chicago, I cannot fault, as Tim said, everything from start to finish. Expo packet pickup was amazing. By the time you scanned your ID to say, yep, I'm here to pick up my bib, you go over to the counter to pick up the bib. They had it ready and waiting for you. You went through the expo. We've talked about the expo already, but it was fantastic. The whole entire process. We did the Abbott's 5K run on the Saturday morning. That was a lot of fun. We did put up a post on the Team Ellis page if anyone wants to have a look at that video. And we have also recorded our time on the course yesterday as well. So Tim will do up a video for that and put it up on Team Ellis as well for anybody who would like to watch the video. Some of the check-ins that we did at every 5Ks, you may not be able to hear us very well because, as Tim said, it is very, very loud. But we pulled up very, very well. Very happy with our time. As we said, everything went exactly to plan and exactly how we wanted it to be. So we were aiming for between 5:30 to 5:45 for this marathon, and we pulled in at 5:31.
Yep.
So very, very happy with that.
Now show them the medal. Let's show the medal.
Anyone who is watching, you can see the medal. There we go. And for those that aren't watching, I'd suggest you Google it. So, it was really, really good.
This is on Facebook, so you would be able to see it.
Yeah, you should be able to, but Tony will be stitching these together as a podcast perhaps later on. So, excellent.
All right, well, we're off to do some drinking and some celebrating here in Nashville. We are also celebrating our 23rd wedding anniversary, which was yesterday, which we ran the marathon on as well. So, it was really good and had a lot of fun. But that's us for now. That's Chicago done and dusted. Now we rest up, have a bit of a holiday, and then we move forward from there to Niagara Falls in 2 weeks, and then New York Marathon to round out the 6-star in 3 weeks' time.
3 weeks' time in New York. So just want to say a massive congratulations though again to all of our 6-star friends. We've got Aisha, we've got Jen Kellett, we've got so many of our friends that obtained that 6-star, and they were actually really proposal from our so there was the marriage proposal from our friends at the end of the marathon, which was great.
Chris and Amy that were on our tour as well.
Yeah.
So, a lot of fun, really good tour. Really enjoyed our time with Travelling Fit, and we'll go break now and catch up with everyone in a little while.
We'll check in at the next run.
Yep.
Thanks,
Happy
guys.
running.
Happy running.
Now, Lucia, they seemed pretty happy with themselves, didn't they?
It was just so great to see, because after the disaster they had in Boston, and Tara's the first to admit it, that Boston just was probably their worst race ever. Whereas for our listeners, you'll know that for me, it was my best race, but I was so glad that everything worked out on the day for them. I could not be happier for them, because those two, they just give it their all. They're so encouraging of everyone, that of everyone around them, their friends. It's just, I was just so happy that everything went well for them. So 1 down, 2 to go for them.
Yes, it was. They just seemed chuffed, and they had a couple of good days in Nashville, looking at their social media posts. So, and no doubt they've tuned in, and Tim's written down all his feedback around the podcast. So we'll see what that brings when they get back. So, Luke, tell us about your weekend. Did you get any runs in after your Melbourne half marathon effort?
It's been very quiet. So I got back in from Melbourne late on the Monday night. So normally I'd run club Tuesday and Thursday. So Tuesday I'm like, no, I need sleep. I did some strength work Wednesday, but then had a cracker of a headache all day Wednesday. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to like the extra hour sleep on Thursday. So I just had a quick run on Saturday with my run club, which was nice. So kind of now getting back into it, because the group I ran with in Melbourne, it's this female group called Femi.
Okay.
And the 2 co-founders, one of them she's one of the Nike head coaches for Australia. They're all about empowering women into running, like working the running schedule out around the menstrual cycle. So it was really empowering running with them. And we did a bit of visualization on the Saturday morning. So it kind of gave me the oomph I need, because I've been in a bit of a slump running wise. So I kind of feel like I've got my mojo back. So hopefully now I can translate that into actually running a bit more. And you guys?
Yeah, we got out on Saturday and we did 15K. A little bit like it was an easy run, but geez, it was hard. And you can certainly tell the weather's starting to kick back into the heat. So I really felt it. And today, because we're recording this on the Sunday, just jumped out for a quick 5K. Mind you, it wasn't quick, but it was a nice and easy 5Ks, which I felt really good about. So it's really interesting, the difference in 2 days. So yeah, definitely on taper. Certainly not going to be doing much more than maybe a 10K run next weekend. We'll do a couple of smaller runs during the week and this week. And then, of course, when you're in traveling mode, you tend not to be able to keep your running routine. But as we travel with Travelling Fit, and no doubt they'll have a couple of shakeout runs, and they're just going to have to wait for Tony and Sharon, because we will probably be running or walking very slow in those, just to keep ourselves fresh for the marathon. But it was a good weekend. So great.
And how's Sharon's foot?
Yeah, the foot's okay. She picked herself up a bargain in a pair of shoes. I won't talk about it, but an absolute bargain. But mind you, she probably won't wear them because they're not the ghosts or the the glycerins that she loves to wear. But yeah, the foot's good. Shins are good. There's just other stuff. There's always stuff. We're getting old, so our bodies are breaking down. So. But yeah, I'm really confident that she'll be fresh and ready to go come New York. So
Excellent.
now, Lucia, one thing that I didn't do last week is play the news theme. So I better do it this week because you know how Tim loves the news theme. So
We'll be in trouble.
and I do have some news that I want to have a chat about. So here's the news. All right, Lucia, I just want to talk about Ruth Chepingedich, right? And because in so many ways, the more I've dived into this, the more I'm just in awe of this lady's achievement. So, have you had a chance to look at some of the stats that she posted during the race?
I haven't. So, but no doubt you have, though, Tony.
Well, let me tell you, at the 5K mark, she was 17 seconds behind the men, right? 5Ks, 17 seconds behind the men. The time she had for the 10K, which was 30 minutes and 14 seconds, would have won her the 10,000 meters at the Paris Olympics because Beatrice Chebet did that in 30 minutes 43. So this is a lady running a marathon, and she would have won the gold medal for the 10,000 meters. At the halfway mark, she was at 1 hour, 4 minutes and 16 seconds. The lady behind her, Asefa Sutumi, was at 1 hour, 1 hour, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. There was 14 seconds different. And the reason why I pinpoint that is because I was listening to one of the podcasts that I listened to, the Marathon Talk by Abbott's World Majors, and Dina was talking about the press conference on the Friday prior to Chicago. And a couple of things really stood out. Asefa was talking about she wanted a pacer to go 64 minutes for the first half, right? So obviously she did that, but Ruth Chepingedich went even quicker, so which was incredible. And the other thing that stood out to Dina was that Beatrice said, oh, sorry, not Beatrice, Ruth said that her training was good and that she was going to have a beautiful race. And it was just really profound when you actually then saw what she did on the Sunday. So I think that's going to be my mantra from now on. I'm going to have a beautiful race when I'm getting ready for a marathon, and let's just hope that works. Hey.
And what are your thoughts? Because they're also saying about Ruth's win, like, was it a clean win? It's just sad that anytime someone does something amazing, they automatically think, are they a clean athlete?
Yeah, I think there's a tendency for people to look at something, and you look at the women's world record, and prior to Tigges Sefa last year, I think it was around 1 hour 14 or something. So she took a big chunk off it at Berlin, and I know that there were some questions raised there, but from what I understand, they get tested at after winning a major
Right away.
or prior. So I would imagine people have I guess people have the right to be curious around where this came from, right? But when you look at, another thing that I found out is that when you look at Ruth's previous cracks at, and she's won, that's the third time she's won Chicago. So,
Yeah.
but last year she was well on world record pace. and then she faltered at about the 35K mark, right? And previously she's gone out on world record pace, and then just for whatever reason she's died or backed it off a little bit. So she knew what the pace was like, right? So I'm sort of thinking, yeah, this is an amazing win. I think what she's the other thing that Dina was, because Dina was on Dina Carter is the lady's name. She was on the lead women's vehicle, so she was one of the commentators. And about the 35K mark, she started to fall back a little bit, as in pace, but you wouldn't see that in her timings, just quietly. But one of the pacer that was with her at the time dropped back and whispered something to her. Or said something, and then she, in Dina's words, Ruth sort of put on the sprinters mode and opened up her hands and started pumping those arms again. So there was obviously a trigger there around that 35K mark that enabled her to just come home really, really strongly. So I think, yeah, it's natural for people to be curious and say, where did this come from? It was a full almost 5 minutes or 6 minutes quicker than what she ran last year. Mind you, last year she was on world record pace and she fell away. So, and she was up against Safan Hassan, who came through in the second fastest time in history. So I think it's a fair result. I think Ruth's been plugging away, and she's had a reputation that she goes out too quickly and just dies. And then I think that she didn't die this time. She just kept going, and what a beautiful race. There's no other way I can say it. So that's going to be my mantra. So. All righty. So that was that's the news. So let's talk about the two little things we're going to talk about. One is the Niagara Falls Marathon, and then you've got some information on another one. Now, what we were talking about was this is Team Ellis's very, very next race. So they're running the half marathon this weekend at the Niagara Falls.
And just to mention, sorry, Tony, I was going to say, and just to mention that Tara's actually an ambassador as well for that race.
100%. And so I've got to apologize because I spread some misinformation on last week's episode that I was interested on how they crossed the border, because I presumed or assumed that it was a cross-border marathon. However, since 2022, they haven't crossed the border. So it's exclusively on the Canada side of the Niagara Falls. And so there's no need for them to cross the border. So, but I do, but then you talked about a marathon where you do cross the border, which we will talk about in just a sec. So let's talk about the Niagara Falls. It used to start in Buffalo, which is on the American side, but it's now run exclusively in Canada. And they are looking to see if they'll ever be able to do the logistical international, it's called, the international flavor of it. But they don't seem to be too excited to do that. So just reading between the lines. So all routes are entirely within Canada. The half marathon runners start at a place called Rapids View Park, which is obviously near the falls. They turn left onto Niagara. Some of these, just listening to street names and everything, you're just sort of getting a gist of what all this is about. They head towards Niagara Falls on Niagara Parkway. Runners will see the roar of the iconic Horseshoe Falls before they turn around by the Falls View Casino, giving you some of the most amazing views you will find on any race course in the world. So I think that that's going to be absolutely beautiful. And then they head back. So it just seems an amazing marathon, all run now exclusively on the Canada side. The expo, the starting line is all at this Rapids View Park. So it sounds like a great race. I envy the Ellises in doing it.
It sounds like it's just going to be very picturesque.
Very much so. So let's talk about this other one that you were talking about, the Detroit Free Press Marathon. So what do you know about it?
So it's actually running. It's actually running today, US time. So they've got a marathon, and a half marathon, and a 10K. And half marathon actually has a really generous cutoff of 6.5 hours, and the half marathon has a cutoff time of 4 hours. And the bit that I found interesting when I was looking more into it, because it did really fascinate me a bit, they actually have, as part of the rules, you have to wear the bib on the front. You can't wear it on the back. It can't be on the leg. And I'll explain why in a bit as well. So how it starts is, the runners. So when you start on the US side, you cross the bridge, and you come into Canada. You go through a bit of Canada, and then you go through a tunnel entering in on the Canadian side, and you come back out into the US. And part of it actually states that you have to make sure you have a valid, well, or depending on the passport you hold, that you have a valid Canadian visa. Because there could be customs, there could be border officials. If they see you with the bib, they could potentially stop you. And one thing you have to carry with you, you actually have to carry ID during the race, whether that be a passport or they mentioned some other types of ID. But as I think it sounds absolutely fascinating, because because if one of the border people stop you, if you don't have any ID, your race is done, because they could potentially deem you as a, I'm trying to think of the word. No, I don't want to say imposter, but
Illegal.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
word. Yeah, so
I'm-
you carry a form of ID on you during the race.
Yeah.
Apparently, they sell pouches at the expo to hold the ID on you, and that's why the bib has to be on the front, because sometimes you see in races that people will wear the bibs on the back or on the legs, but they specify it's got to be on the front, so that way it's visible to border patrol officers.
Yeah, yeah. You can imagine someone, if they were trying to sneak through the border, the best way to do it would be to go run with the marathoners. But yeah, I found it fascinating because when you talked about it, and when I found out that the Niagara wasn't an international border, I had to go find out how they do this. Because and you're right, you've got to carry ID on you, but every stage of the process. So, from what I understand, when you register to do it, all that needs to be approved, right? So, it starts in America, finishes in America. So, it's an American race, but it's going through parts of Canada. So, when you register, everyone that's registered goes through an approval process that they can actually go into Canada, right? So that's stage number one. You've then got to bring all your relevant everything with you, the forms and everything that they ask you to fill out with you to the expo so that it can be verified. So you're getting another check that you can go into Canada. And then on the day, as you were saying, you've got to carry ID with you. And I think they call it there's a name that card. It's like a card that you've got to carry to prove that you are who you are, say you are. So could you imagine if you're running that and you just randomly get stopped and then your whatever has fallen out somewhere? I think not finishing the race then becomes probably the least of your worries. What happens? Yeah, we should have looked up what happens if you enter Canada illegally. So
I think they put you on a bus and maybe bring you back into the US, because something, okay, kind of similar, but not similar, happened to me when I was running Chicago. So I always had like a little zip purse which has like my key, like my FPOS card and my hotel room card. So that way, when I go back to the hotel, I can buy a snack. Because our listeners know I do like a good snack after a race. And I'd kept it in my flip belt, in the same pocket as to where I had my phone, because I kept my phone out, taking photos. At one point, I couldn't feel. I'm like, shit, I've lost it. I've lost the key card. I've lost my hotel key. Thank God I hadn't put it all the way in properly, but I went for about maybe 100 meters thinking, okay, I have to contact the bank. I have to get a new card. So that would probably be one thing that would drive me crazy, is thinking having something as important as that ID on you and constantly making sure, have I got it? Have I got it? But then saying that, when I was having a look at the date of the Detroit Free Press race, I now have a new kind of trip I'd love to do. If I could, money wasn't an issue, I'd do the half marathon of the Detroit one. I do Marine Corps the week after.
Yeah.
And then I do New York a week after that.
Wow. Yeah.
Because that would be a cracker of a trip to do.
It certainly would be. And money's probably the only thing stopping all of us from doing that. So
exactly.
I saw a lady's video where she was one of the pacers, I think one of the 6-hour pacers for Detroit Press, and she's filming as she's doing the tunnel on the way back, where you enter the tunnel from Canada and you come through into the US, and there's a runner beside her who's telling everyone how musty and musky the tunnel smells and whatnot. But even just that is quite unique, I think, where you enter and wave goodbye to Canada and then you pop out under the river. So I think it's the Detroit River it goes under.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's the Detroit Press. There are a few from what I can gather, because that's the two that we've talked about. So good luck to Team Ellis on their Niagara Falls, and good luck to everyone that ran the Detroit Press Marathon. Just before we kicked off tonight, I was watching the Amsterdam Marathon, because, as you know, I'm running that. I aim to run it next year, and the course looks amazing. I can't wait to do it. There's a lot of countryside in there, and there's a lot of cobblestone streets and historical buildings. So really looking forward to doing it. And by the time this episode comes out, registrations for next year, I think, is 27th of October. So marathon today, in a week's time, they'll start registering for next year. So, so I'm keen to get on there on the very first day and get Sharon and I registered. And of course, if any other listeners or viewers are interested in doing the Amsterdam Marathon, registration starts this weekend when the podcast comes out. So,
and if there are any listeners out there that have any connections that would love to give Tony and Sharon a complimentary entry to the Amsterdam Marathon, also feel free to reach out. Couldn't resist, I had to.
Yeah, why not? No, a complimentary entry to any marathon going around is always good. So, hey, only a quick one tonight, Luch, but after all the feedback around Lucia's tip last week, we've got to run it again. So I'm going to throw it open. I'm going to handball it over. Lucia's tip.
And we have to give the people what we want, ultimately. Well, at least while we have the chance. So this week's tip, this one, it took me a while to kind of realize myself, and it's all about not worrying about others. And really what I mean by that, everyone runs their races the way they want to, because you could be at the start line and you can see someone zooming past you, but you don't know if they're using that race for a training run, or if not, if they're trying to get a PB. So never worry about what other people are doing, and just focus on what you want to do and what you're trying to achieve. Because ultimately, everyone runs the same distance. Everyone gets the same medal. And I probably only really kind of appreciated that after Boston, even though I've been running for, God, let's say seriously, probably for about 10 years and doing a number of marathons, half marathons. But it really hit home for me in Boston that it doesn't matter what others are doing, because you don't know what their plan is. You've just got to worry about yourself. So ultimately, my tip of the day is don't worry about anyone else. Just worry about yourself.
And that is a great tip, because And as we saw with you in Boston, you had your plan, you stuck to it religiously, and resulted ultimately in you clapping yourself as you went across.
How many times, Tony?
Wasn't it about 4, I think? So one of the most joyous things I've ever seen, but Leach. So and if listeners ever get the chance to see Lucia across the finish line at Berlin Boston 2024, you just see the level of excitement, and that's what happens when a plan comes through, right? Um, you just nail it, and those days are few and far between. So when they happen, absolutely just clap yourself and make it work. So
And that day, I didn't worry about anyone else. I just worried about myself. I did worry about Tara for a few seconds when I did see her, but ultimately, I had to worry about myself.
And that must have been really hard for you, to be honest, because you would have been really quite concerned for a good friend of yours, but also very firmly devoted to and committed to the plan that you had. And that must have been so challenging. So
it was a tough one because Tara and Tim are two of the nicest people you could ever meet, and they've been ever since I met them when we did Dopey.
Yeah,
it's like they're kind of I kind of have two sets of running parents, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
And Tara, him, and they've always just been so supportive, making sure that whenever we're away together, if I need anything, they're just always there for everyone. And the fact that I couldn't be there for her, because I shouldn't have seen them on course that day. I should not have seen them at all. But when I did, I'm like, okay, something's not right. But Tim's like, go run your race. So it was hard to do it, but I knew I had to. But they had such, like, and Tara said it a number of times, they had such a bad race. But afterwards at the Travelling Fit party, Tara and Tim couldn't have been any happier for me. They were just so proud because they knew the work I'd put in. So it was hard for me not to be able to support them. And unfortunately that day I couldn't worry for them.
Yeah. And Tara would have been devastated if you had lost your race because stopping to care for her. And as we know, she was in pretty good hands with Tim. So I think he just put a rope around her and just dragged her along, didn't he? No, of course I'm joking, viewers, but but that was really, really tough, and I never personally want to be in that position myself, where you've committed, you're having a good day on the course, and you see one of your friends struggling. I remember coming down Fifth Avenue just before you go into Central Park in New York, and I remember two things. Rob D. Costello at the Carb Load dinner was talking about you'll pass people on Fifth Avenue. And like Sharon and I were certainly not quick runners, but we were passing people on Fifth Avenue. So that was sticking in my head. And then we ran past this guy and you could see the cramping in his legs. You know, when someone's severely cramped and his partner has got this particular gentleman and she's trying to sort of shuffle, and he's pretty much predominantly just like a bag of cramped muscles, right? He wasn't giving her too much support, right? And as you know, you still got probably 4 to 5K to go as you come into Central Park. So you still got a bit to go. And, you know, I said to Sharon, we should stop and help. And Sharon just said, no way, we've got enough dramas ourselves. Head down, the way you go. And, you know, she was right because, you know, he was there wasn't much I could do that would help him. And I had nothing on me that I could give him. There was, you know, in terms of cramp stuff or electrolytes or anything like that. And fundamentally, he was in that position with the person that they'd run together with anyway. So there wasn't much I could do, but you do really feel as a human, you just cry out and you want to help, but sometimes there's just
Sometimes you can't.
you can't, and sometimes too much help is too much. So all righty, so that's it, Luch. We've done another show, we've done another episode. Is there anything that we've missed that we need to talk about before I wind her up?
Probably the only thing we've got to do is what's happening next week.
Yeah, that's probably important.
Yeah, just maybe minor details. So actually I'm looking forward to next week's one, but also jealous at the same time because packing the bags for New York. So as much as I would have loved to have been there with all of you guys and to help Tara and Tim celebrate their 6-star.
Yeah.
I've had to be an adult for one, but I'll be biggest cheerleaders on race day. So next week we'll be talking about getting ready for New York and all the tips that Tony and I can share with our listeners, because obviously both of us having our 6 stars means we've done New York. And I think what's going to be interesting, I don't want to say too much now, but what's going to be interesting with this one is the race is Sunday, the election is on the Tuesday, and when I did New York in 2016, that was when Trump got in the first time. So I'll give some insight into how New York was on the Tuesday night.
Yeah, I'm not overly worried about the election, but it's going to be, as you say, very interesting. Hey, I did some quick research today. It seems that Abbott's have updated their 6-star, 5-star from Chicago, which is cool. So at the end of Chicago, there are now 465 6-star finishes from Australia, which means that there were just 19 Australians got their 6-star at Chicago.
That's not a lot.
No. And then when you look at the 5-star list of names from Australia, there are currently 10 males and 8 females who have to do New York to get their 6-star. Now, as we know, not all of those 18 will be lining up on the start line. So very, very interesting. So all up, 465 Australians, 266 males, 199 females. So I think when we talked a couple of weeks ago before Tim and Tara left, there was 187 females, and Tara was, maybe I might sneak in under 200. Well, she would have to beat every other female from Australia running the New York Marathon to be 200. So I think it's fair to say she might be 201, 202 or something. Still an amazing achievement. And Tim, I think, will probably be sitting around 270 in the male category. So
how many people is that all up with their 6-star after Chicago, Tony?
Oh, I wish you would. I wish we had a run sheet.
Where's the fun in that? Come on.
Okay, let's quickly look this up before we. So at the end of Chicago, there are now, and you know what? They just say 10,000 plus.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. So okay. So
I reckon,
thank you.
It'd be close to 18, because I think when I did Boston, it was about 17.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, maybe not that many, but still, it wouldn't be any more than 18.
Yeah, on 18,000. So it's still amazing, and there's still now so many people talking about what are they going to do when Sydney comes on deck with the 6-star. But I think they've been fairly consistent in saying that the 6-star remains for at least for now, at least the people on that journey. And then, but I do believe that there will be a 7th star or an 8-star or a 9th-star medal that will ultimately come true. So at some stage. So let's see what happens. Hey. Well, thanks for that. I am looking forward to our next episode, talking all things New York. It was our first marathon. It's my favorite marathon as well. So looking forward to that one, Lucia. So as you know, we've now concluded. We've shut the door on this episode. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe wherever you've listened or watched it. Videos available on Spotify and YouTube, and audio is on all good podcast platforms. Remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we're going to catch you on the very next episode of The Flying Runner. Until then, happy running.
Happy running, guys.